Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Rotary Club of Tulsa 2013 Mayoral Candidate Forum. We have 6 days until the election. It's June 11th. It's a very important election. We thank each of the candidates for joining us today and for your willingness to offer your talents to serve the citizens of Tulsa. We have we have very little time to cover a lot of issues. So I'm going to ask that you withhold, that you hold back applauding or showing approval or disapproval of any of the comments. At the end, we'll recognize all of the candidates for their participation and show our appreciation to them. The candidates have been advised to answer the questions within the time allotted to show respect for you and so that we can get through as many questions as possible. You know that if any candidate receives 50% in the election that's in 6 days, that candidate will become mayor sworn in December. If 2 candidates combine for a majority, they'll have they'll advance to the general election on November 12th. If it takes 3 candidates to get a majority, then there'll be a runoff on August 13th. This term that the mayor is running for this is a nonpartisan election. It's Tulsa's first nonpartisan primary, and the mayor will serve a 3-year term, with the mayor that we elected in 2016 to serve a 4-year term. The order of presentation today has been determined by a random process, and I'm going to give you now a brief excerpt from the candidates' bios. First, we have Mayor Dewey Bartlett. He's an honorary member of this club. He's the 39th mayor of Tulsa. He was born on March 16, 1947 in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He's a graduate of Bishop Kelly High School and received a BS in accounting from Regis University and an MBA from SMU. After graduating from SMU, he worked in the oil fields, spent 2 years as a landman, and in 1979 earned a position as a co-managing partner in the family business called Keener Oil. He became managing partner of that business in 1987 and has served as president since 1994. His civic service includes being a city councilor from 1990 to 1994, also as former board chairman of the Tulsa chapter of the American Red Cross. He was on the Oklahoma Energy Resources Board, the Tulsa Airport Authority Board of Trustees, and Mayor Taylor's Complete Our Streets Committee. Among his accomplishments since taking office, he presented a balanced, bare-bones budget to the council during an unprecedented financial crisis, reducing costs to match forecasted revenues. He launched the largest strategic business review performed by KPMG of city operations to find cost savings and efficiencies. He also, is involved in the creation of a first-of-a-kind citywide citizen survey to find out what Tulsans think our vision should be. He and his wife Victoria have 3 children: Dewey III, Ann Bennett, and Andrea Peterson Brown. Bill Christensen is with us today. He is a member of Southside Rotary. After graduating from the University of Oklahoma with a BA in Business Administration, he spent time on active duty in the United States Marine Corps Reserve. During his studies at the University of Oklahoma, he met his wife, future wife, Loretta. They married in 1971. They moved to Tulsa and opened Christensen Aviation in May of 1972. He grew the company from 2 employees and 3 aircraft to a staff of 45 employees in Tulsa and more than 200 aircraft on lease around the country. Christensen Aviation has celebrated 41 years of successful business in the Tulsa region. He and his wife have raised 2 sons, Ken and Brian Christensen. Both sons currently work in the family business. Bill ran for a city council seat, and he served as a city councilor for 5 terms from District 8 from 2002 to 2011 with 3 different mayors. He was a member of the Vision 2025 leadership team. He chaired an Orange Barrel Task Force, which he celebrated completion of Tulsa Streets projects in 2002. He opposed the South Tulsa Bridge in 2005. He voted against IMSA added fees to the water bill in 2007. He had chaired the City Council Tax Increment Finance Committee in 2008. And he's a former adjunct professor at OSU Tulsa for aviation. Former Mayor Kathy Taylor In 2012, she is a member of our club. In 2012, Kathy served as a resident fellow at the Harvard Kennedy School Institute of Politics, teaching a course on the pathways to public service. She is a graduate of the University of Oklahoma with a journalism degree, and then finished at the top of her law school class at OU. She entered public service in 2003 when she was appointed Oklahoma Secretary of Commerce, Tourism, and Workforce Development. She led the recruitment of Dell to Oklahoma, landing the company's second largest U.S. facility and providing thousands of jobs for Oklahomans. In April 2006, she was elected our mayor. Under her leadership, citizens passed the largest investment in Tulsa streets in the city's history and developed its first comprehensive land use plan in 30 years called Planet Tulsa. Kathy spurred downtown development, including the John Hope Reconciliation Park and nearby sports stadium that houses the Tulsa Drillers. She also was appointed after leaving City Hall by Governor Brad Henry to serve as Oklahoma's Chief of Education, Strategy, and Innovation. Kathy's supportive family in Tulsa includes her husband, a daughter, a stepdaughter, and their husbands, many beloved grandchildren, and 2 very spoiled dogs. Okay, each of the candidates will now give a 3-minute opening statement, and if you'll just follow one after the other, we'll start with Mayor Bartlett.
John, thank you very, very much for the opportunity. First, I'd like to introduce the First Lady of Tulsa, my wife and best friend, Victoria Bartlett. Victoria. Well, it's been a real pleasure of mine to be your mayor for the past almost 4 years. And we've been through a lot of ups and downs. And the great thing about being mayor is I have a very verifiable record. I'm asking you to look at that record and to look at what we've accomplished, the things we've gone through, the directives that we've approached government, and the results, in the vision. What we've accomplished, in my view, has been pretty incredible. We took over at a time when we were spending money at a rate that exceeded our income. We had to make some very, very difficult choices and decisions. But we did them for two methods. First, for the short term. We did make a lot of cuts, made a lot of changes. But we also focused on the long term, on how our government would not have to revisit that type of activity again. It's not fair for taxpayers, much less the employees. We've accomplished that. We then began focusing on jobs, economic development. Because at the end of the day, if we don't create economic development, create jobs, we don't create any new taxpayers. All the greatest ideas in the world will never happen because there's not sufficient revenue to pay for them. So we set off on a very ambitious goal. And today we've helped create 9,000 jobs in the city of Tulsa alone, 15,000 in the area around Tulsa. And that's contributed a lot to our capability. But we've also looked at the efficiency of our government. We've established a rainy day fund. When I took over, we had a rainy day fund, but it had no money in it. Now we have $2 million. So at least we should be able to absorb a financial hit if things happen to turn again in our future. Hopefully they won't, obviously. Also had the honor of being co-chairman of the Fix Our Streets Committee several years ago, and created an opportunity that was very successfully passed by the voters that helped create $450+ million of money to go towards rebuilding and fixing our street system. We unfortunately got in that position because we had not maintained our street system properly. It started to deteriorate prematurely. We're hoping to fix that. We do believe that we have a plan in place that we presented to the council that will require a vote of the people that will dedicate a significant amount of money in a specific dedicated plan to provide street crews as well as public safety assistance for those people. I thank you very much for your opportunity to speak, and I do ask you for your vote this June 11th, next Tuesday. Thank you very much, John.
Former Councilor Christensen, you're next.
Well, thank you very much for having us here today. I'm honored to be be here. I did want to take a couple seconds of my 3 minutes, if you don't mind, and introduce my wife, Loretta. Tomorrow is our 43rd anniversary. It's the next forum, and it's also D-Day, so I don't know if there's any meeting there or not. We've been married 43 years, and I'm blessed to have her as my wife. And the other person I want to take a second and introduce is a guy that is really near and dear to my heart, and I think you all probably know him. He is a wonderful person for the city of Tulsa. He gives back to the city of Tulsa every day, and his name is John Crouch. John, Dr. Crouch, would you stand up for just 1 second? I appreciate Dr. Crouch very much. He has been our family doctor since 1985, and I love to death, and he really gives a very thorough physical, which I never really enjoy. So anyway, thank you, Dr. Crouch, for still being in service to the city. Well, I'm here today to talk to you about answer your questions and my vision for Tulsa. You know, basically, I served on the city council for 10 years. I was in the United States Marine Corps, and I've been in my own small business, started my own small business in 1972. So I want to combine those three aspects of my life to make the city of Tulsa a better place for all of us to live. I have a vision for Tulsa that I want Tulsa to be a great place to live, work, and play so that your children, your grandchildren, my grandchildren will have a reason to stay here. You know, when I first got on the Vision 2025 leadership team, I heard from a lot of different people in that process that their children were forced to leave because they couldn't find a job. And they also left because there wasn't a lot to do in Tulsa. Well, the Vision 2025, you know, built the Bank of Oklahoma Center, and we give credit to Bill and Fortune and Bob Dick for that because they did a wonderful job. And look how active downtown is now. You know, the Brady District is a TIF, a tax increment finance district, and now we have the ballpark. So life is really getting better. But my goal is to make it better than it is today. I think it's great that we live here today, but I think we've got some more growing to do so that my grandchildren, my granddaughter that was just born, will have a reason to stay here. You know, in the Marine Corps, I went to officer candidate school, and I learned what they call servant leadership. And servant leadership is where, you know, you're just not the boss, but you're the leader of the platoon, or you're leader of the company, or leader of the battalion. And I take that to heart. I took that to heart when I was on the city council, because I learned on the city council very early that in order to get along, in order to do positive things for the city of Tulsa, you had to build strong relationships with the other councilors and with the other elected officials. And I take that very seriously in that I've worked with 5 different sets of city councilors. And it really is, and I think Phil Lakin will tell you, it really is quite an effort to do all that, but it's very important to work at that. So I hope to bring that aspect of what I learned about building relationships to the mayor's office and build relationships with all of Tulsa. Thank you.
Former Mayor Taylor.
Well, I want to thank my Rotary Club for hosting this event and allowing us the opportunity to talk with Tulsans so you can make an educated decision on June 11th, Election Day. And of course, I want to thank my family for their support. My husband Bill and my daughter Elizabeth are with us today. But let me begin by, with permission, borrowing from the words written by a fellow Rotarian over a decade ago. 60 years ago, Tulsa was the center of the universe. We were the oil capital of the world, the water capital of the Southwest, and one publication called us America's most beautiful city. I think it is time for Tulsa to reclaim the titles that brought us positive national attention. It is time for us to demand statistics in public education and in public safety that put Tulsa at the top of lists that attract people and expand jobs in our community. We must not accept being at the top of the wrong list, those that make citizens concerned to send their kids to our schools, to drive our streets during the day, and to walk our streets at night. We must demand a crackdown on gang-related violence, which mars our city's reputation. We must demand that our city use 21st century technology to prevent crime, to catch criminals, and to tell us where and with whom our hard-earned tax dollars are being spent. And we must raise our hand higher to remake public education so every kid has a chance to succeed. Tulsa has never been a place where good enough was good enough. We're a must-do place, and we have to be jointly on a mission to reclaim the city with unlimited potential. Now, when I completed my term in office, we handed Mayor Bartlett a balanced budget. That's required by law. That balanced budget, the operating budget, was $566 million. Next year's budget is projected to be $818 million. Today, Tulsa's spending in its operating budget alone has increased more than $80 million from the day I completed my term. That's equivalent to the operating budget of the entire city of Broken Arrow. We still don't have enough of police officers. We don't have gang outreach workers on the streets working with troubled youth. During our time in office, we took risks to invest for Tulsa's future. Risks backed by strong financial analysis and the opportunity for success, just as each of you have done with your businesses. We built One Oak Field, and when Willtown left town and left the building almost empty, we purchased it at 25% of its original cost using tax-exempt revenue bonds, and today that building is 94% leased, and we reduced government's footprint, turning old government buildings over to private investors like Old City Hall. Now, we know that government doesn't create jobs. They have to create the environment for jobs. They have to create the environment to attract private investment with good infrastructure, a safe city, and education. I believe Tulsans need proven leadership to move forward. I'm ready to work with you for the future that Tulsans want and deserve. I hope to have you trust me with your vote on June 11th. Thank you.
Okay, so let's withhold our applause now so we can get through these. Thank you all to all three candidates. Our first question, we'll start with former Councilor Christensen. Do we need more police and fire personnel? If so, how many of each? And how will you pay for the increases? Please give us detail.
We do need more police officers. I think right now we're down probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 police officers. Right now the city is paying in excess of $3.5 million this fiscal year alone for callbacks, for overtime for police officers. As a small businessman, I know that's not the way to do it because that's a very expensive way to meet minimum staffing levels. You know, police officers, I watched on the council as police officers got laid off, and it broke my heart because at the end of the day, without good public safety, we don't have a safe city, we won't have good economic development. So police are my number one issue. To be specific about funding, the number one thing I will do is when I get to the mayor's office, I will lead by example. There will not be people in my administration that make high or mid six-figure salaries. No one will make more than the mayor, which is $105,000. The second thing I will do is immediately go through a mini zero-based budgeting program in each department. You know, right now I feel as though we have a lot of middle managers. We have a very vertical organizational chart in the city of Tulsa right now. So we need to just shake the trees, apply my small business approach to saving money in the city of Tulsa, and use that money to fund the proper number of police officers for this next fiscal year. Thank you.
Thank you. Former Mayor Taylor.
In 2008, we hired a company called MGT to do an analysis of the number of police officers we needed in our city. That study is now 5 years old, and things have changed in Tulsa. Our downtown is booming, and our demographics are changing. I believe that study needs to be updated so we can determine the number of officers we need. But how do we pay for those officers? We have $80 million more in the operating budget today than when I completed my term. If public safety is a priority, the funds are in the operating budget to pay for those officers. But I also think we need to take a comprehensive approach to public safety and not just put it on the officers' shoulders. We need to make sure that we have community-based policing, working with neighborhood associations and the Crime Prevention Network. We need to intervene in the lives of children, as we have with the Community Intervention Center and the mentoring program. When I entered office in 2006, we studied the data, the crime data, and found that, in fact, 26% of the crimes were being committed by juveniles. And we went to attack that because public safety is about prevention, intervention, and then prosecution. We need to take a holistic approach to public safety, and that includes adequately staffing our police department.
Thank you. Mayor Bartlett.
Yes, we do need more firefighters and police officers on the ground. Penalties referred to as boots on the ground. What we have done is, when I became mayor, I had the pleasure of appointing Chuck Jordan as our new police chief. And he immediately instituted programs that changed the way that we were allocating the police. We now have more police officers on the ground, in the field, protecting us from getting the bad guys. This is called the beat system. And we've accomplished that, and it works much better and more efficiently. But that doesn't solve the problem. We need more police officers, especially. We also need more firefighters. We need about 850, 860 police officers at this point. We don't need another study. We need boots on the ground. Firefighters, we need an additional 15 to man a new fire station that has been, funds have been allocated for in East Tulsa. That would allow interest rates to drop in East Tulsa. That would help us all tremendously. I would pay for it. The only one that's come up with a specified plan that would reallocate, assuming that the voters of the public of Tulsa agree to it, to reallocate a small amount of money that would go toward dedicated funds to provide 70 new police officers, 45 new firefighters, and 3 new street crews to maintain our city streets. And it would be done without a tax increase. Without a tax increase, and it would not have a bad effect upon the existing budget and the existing departments that are already at a point where they are being stretched. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Our next question we will lead with former Mayor Taylor. What specific actions will you take in your first year to grow Tulsa businesses and to bring jobs to Tulsa?
Thank you. Over 90% of the jobs in Tulsa are with companies of 100 or fewer employees. 82% are 10 or fewer employees. It's vital that Tulsa prepare an environment for those companies to expand and grow. And there's several ways we do that. One is focusing on education. As I met recently with a group of small businesses, they said what I've heard and what I heard as Secretary of Commerce. We need to make sure that we have a workforce that's educated for the 21st century, that allows us to be competitive in a global economy. So continuing to focus on increasing our high school graduation rate and allowing students to take advantage of the great gift that Tulsa, Oklahoma offers them through Tulsa Community College, the Tulsa Chiefs program, and Tulsa Technology Center, the Tulsa Pathways program. But in addition, the Kauffman Foundation, who many of you are familiar with, a private foundation out of Kansas City, dedicated to the American Free Enterprise System, recently gave Tulsa a D in terms of ease of opening a small business. Oklahoma City, our sister city down the street, received a B+. It's important that Tulsa analyze that report and determine why it is that it is difficult to open a small business. That is what we need to do to support jobs and making sure that Tulsa's reputation is a safe city, is a city with a great public education system, and a city that has a great infrastructure. Without government preparing the environment for businesses to expand and attract and retain jobs, it won't happen. Government shouldn't create jobs, they should create the environment.
Thank you. Mayor Barton.
When I campaigned for mayor 4 years ago, I said I wanted to become Tulsa's job-gettingest mayor. We've accomplished that to a high degree. I mentioned to you previously the statistics, the jobs we have helped create in a very collaborative way, not just with the businesses around Tulsa, small business in particular, but our Tulsa Chamber, our Tulsa Regional Chamber of Commerce. Well, how do we do it? How do we continue that? More of the same. Focusing on small business, that's the backbone of our community. Focusing on the assets we presently have. In the energy industry, oil and gas, 50% of our employees are touched somehow by the energy, oil and natural gas industry, employment-wise, also aviation and aerospace. But we also must have a long-term focus, which is focusing on workforce development. Too often we see people graduate from high school are not going to go to a 4-year college for whatever reason. They don't have the capability, it's not going to be in their cards. So what do? Presently, not much. They have not been exposed to other opportunities that they can have by working, getting a job, workforce development. So what we've tried to do, and we've talked about it tremendously, is getting the VOTEC system, getting training in the school where they are exposed to working with one's hands, and getting to know that it is a good idea to become a welder, or a carpenter, or an electrician, or a plumber. They can immediately get a job, they can immediately begin supporting themselves and their families, and that is done without the debt of a college degree. It's a great opportunity for us, and we will become the mecca of the world if we implement that approach. Thanks, John.
Thank you. Former Councilor Christensen.
Thank you very much. You know, Jim Fram, who worked for the Metro Chamber, did an article last April about 4 things he would recommend. You know, he left and went to Hot Springs, Arkansas, and I want to read this to you. He says, the war on crime. He says, while business and industry factors are considered during the relocation process, a community's crime statistics are usually also a key part of the discussion. Tulsa's crime rate continues to be a factor in our community being eliminated from many job creation projects. Now that to me comes from a guy who's totally unbiased, who really was in the trenches trying to bring business here. So the first thing we need to do, and we need to do this sooner than later, we need to stop talking about it, we need to do it, we need to get our crime statistics down. You know, we're on a path for a record number of homicides this year, and these businesses that we try to bring to Tulsa, look at the crime data very carefully. I'm sure Mike Neal from the Metro Chamber will say that. He's up against that every day. The other thing I think we need to do is we need to start going, physically going often, or maybe even have offices located in parts of the country that are business unfriendly. And the best one that comes to mind is California. You know, we just had workman's comp reform. It's a step in the right direction. We have a wonderful city here. We have a great workforce. We have good tech schools. And we need to be able to sell ourselves better to those areas of the country that have too much red tape. We need to lay out the red carpet and not the red tape, and do something about helping small businesses open up quicker in Tulsa, not giving them all this red tape to go through.
Oklahoma City started its recent growth spurt by improving public elementary and secondary education. What specific plans do you have to improve public education in Tulsa?
Well, as you know, the mayor does not have a direct influence or direct management of our school system. However, as mayor, I do have the bully pulpit, and I do have the opportunity to speak as loud as I can about the need for our city to have an educated workforce. I just spoke of workforce development, about giving our school children an opportunity while they go through high school to learn what it's like to be that welder, mechanic, et cetera, et cetera. So they have that opportunity once they graduate from high school to have a decision they can make to become a productive citizen. But we also use the training facilities and the VOTEC system that our community has, the best in the world, literally. We have private training enterprises like Spartan Aviation, Tulsa Welding School. They interact so well with the publicly available VOTEC systems. We have a new superintendent of our VOTEC system, Steve Tiger. We've interacted very, very well, where the private and public sectors work together, not to duplicate one another, but to provide an opportunity of training for the people that we're supposed to train, those that need training for an education and to become productive citizens. That is the type of approach we must have, a business-like approach to make certain that we have an educated, a variety of educated workforce in our community that companies can look for for hiring purposes. Thank you.
Thank you, former Councilor Christensen.
Thank you for the promotion.
There you go. It was in the past.
It's a Freudian slip, I know. Thank you. I would say, you know, the number one thing we need to do is get our high school graduation rate up. I know it's pretty dismal right now in some areas of the city, but I think the best thing the mayor of Tulsa can do is work with and speak with and network with the state legislature. Because right now, you know, we don't have enough funding for the public school systems in Tulsa. My wife was a kindergarten teacher for 28 years, and I watched her year after year take more and more money out of her pocket. And now that she's retired, I watch her very active in the Parents Legislative Action Committee, the PLAC. They go to Oklahoma City and they lobby the state legislators. And you know what? They're making progress, but we still have a lot of progress to go. But it's really, the mayor should be directly involved. And I would throw this out to you just as an idea, and I'm not sure if it would work or not, but quite possibly the mayor of Tulsa should be a non-voting member of Tulsa Public Schools, the school board, just to be more involved and go to the meetings, be up on the things that are going on, and be able to give his input based on the citizens that he or she represents from the city of Tulsa. So it's a very important issue. I think with my background, with my wife's background, we will be actively engaged in improving education, because at the end of the day, without good education, the city will be stagnant. Thank you.
Thank you. Former Mayor Taylor.
We can't have a healthy city without healthy schools, and I met recently with the superintendent of Union Public Schools and of Tulsa Public Schools to brainstorm how we can more aggressively work together and use your tax dollars wisely. How we can leverage those, whether it is in areas of transportation, or it is in street planning, or even park program development. And I think that's an important thing, is that we work very aggressively together. Secondly, the Tulsa Achieves and the Tulsa Pathways programs were programs that came as a result of CEOs of companies in this city get together with me as mayor on a Sunday afternoon and saying, we have a 2.9% unemployment rate. I'm going to have to expand jobs in Dallas and Houston unless you can provide a workforce for us in Tulsa, Oklahoma. President Tom McKean and State Regent Stuart Price came back to my office 30 days later and said, we think we found a solution to that problem. It's a program in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and that was how Tulsa Achieves was born. So working together to solve those problems. The mentoring program, which we began to increase those high school graduation rates, and I'm proud to have worked on a bipartisan basis, including with Senator Crane, to have passed the Teacher Leader Effectiveness Act when I was Chief of Education and Strategy for Governor Henry. That act is being implemented now at Tulsa Public Schools and at schools across this state to ensure that teachers have the support they need and that students have the teachers they need.
The next question will go first to former Councilor Christensen. Does Tulsa need a new vision package, and if so, what will be the largest two items that should be funded in that package?
Yes, I do think Tulsa needs a new vision package, but I think it needs to be done in the same format that Vision 2025 was done. I think Tulsa needs a new vision package, and I would say to you this time it needs to be the city of Tulsa that needs a new vision, and let the outlying communities maybe piggyback and do the same thing at the same time. But we do need one, and I think the two biggest projects I would like to see is a combination of resources, public, private, the tribes, the city, the county, the state, all of that, to put water in the river. It's a great asset that we have, and we need to have water in the river. So the second biggest asset, the second biggest project, I just have to, I probably want to put that out there to the citizens of Tulsa and let them have input on it and see what they suggested. Thank you.
Thank you. Former Mayor Taylor.
Well, I think the first thing we need to do is as the councilor suggested, and get a package in November to continue to invest in our streets. Continuing to invest in our infrastructure has to be the highest priority. And then I agree with Councilor Christensen. I think there needs to be a 2025-like community dialogue to determine, knowing that we have constrained government dollars, what is the best use for our tax dollars to bring jobs to our city, to help encourage our education system, and to make sure that this continues to be a vibrant city. I don't think it's a top-down approach has worked for Tulsa. We've seen that in several packages over the last few decades. I think it needs to be a community engagement process, and then the mayor takes the leadership to ensure that process and that package is passed.
Thank you. Mayor Bartlett.
In my view, the two biggest points we need to make are education, community involvement, much the same as Vision 2025. When Mayor Bill LaFortune and County Commissioner Bob Dick led us through that process, it worked extremely well. That is the type of approach we need to have. Top of the list would be putting water in the river. A collaborative approach between the county, the city, the various cities around, the various large entities like the tribe, as well as the private sector. Second thing, in my view, would be the Go Crease Expressway. Because the Go Crease Expressway, the completion of that would give us, finally, an outer loop around our city. And it would tie together portions of our city that have been heretofore economically disadvantaged, have not participated with the economy of our city. The north side of Tulsa, the northwest, and west Tulsa. Great opportunity once that capability is completed. In my view, water in the river, Go Crease Expressway.
We'll start with former Mayor Taylor.
Well, I think that's a very important thing, and we've seen that happen in cities around, in regions around the country, from Louisville to Nashville, where duplicative government services are eliminated and layers of administration. I've met with the city of Broken Arrow, the mayor there, and they are very much ready to be a partner. They understand Tulsa has to be healthy for the surrounding communities to be healthy, but we need to work towards that goal of a more cooperative government. When I was first in office, I actually launched a committee, asked Howard Burnett to chair it, to see where we could best source different services for our city and county government. There was not a cooperative spirit at the time, but I believe there is now, and it's something that we should continue to look at in terms of public safety, in terms of park involvement, in terms of transportation. Currently, our transportation system is only a City of Tulsa transportation system. We should look at that on a cooperative regional basis as well. I think it's a very high priority.
Thank you, Mayor Bartlett.
To me, the best example is what we've already accomplished as a way to begin and a way to continue. Relationship building is so important in government, whether it's local government, county government, or a phone ringing in your relationship between my cell phone and very real. What we have done between the city and the county of Tulsa, we immediately began figuring out that we duplicated each other quite a bit. So why do we continue to do that? Well, the relationship wasn't there between the city and the county, so we established a relationship. We also included our city council in that effort. We found out that there are many services that are duplicated. It's paid for by the same taxpayers, so why do we do that? So we made a lot of changes. Medical facilities, printing facilities, work in the construction arena that we stopped duplicating, but we collaborated to work together. And that has saved us, taxpayers, millions of dollars for the next several years. That's a good example of what we would continue to do.
Thank you. Former Councilor Christensen.
Well, I was on that committee that Mayor Bartlett spoke of, and it really was an interesting committee because there weren't a lot of services that we could cut out and do together and save money. I think one of the next steps we need to take is have a really detailed look at the park system. You know, we have Tulsa County parks, we have city parks, and we have Tulsa City County parks. And so I think that's the first step that would go a long way to start saving money. I think the next thing we need to do is work, you know, the Metro Chamber just changed its name to the Regional Chamber. And I think that's great. They're reaching out far into northeastern Oklahoma, and I think that's a wonderful thing. But I think we need to get together with the other communities and the other people that benefit by that and make sure everybody is paying their fair share. You know, right now, a lot of the money that is spent for things like that comes from the Convention and Visitors Bureau tax, which is the hotel-motel tax. So I think working with the regional chamber is a great thing, and I think regionalism is really a good thing. As an example, working on the river together. Thank you.
2-minute closing statement. We will start with former Councilor Christensen.
Thanks so much. I would just say to you, number one, I'm honored to be here, and quite frankly, I've been honored to be a city councilor for the last 10 years, and I'm honored to be running for the mayor. I am a member of Southside Rotary, and I will just promise you all this, that in my office, it will be hung big on the wall, will be the 4-way test, which is right behind me. You know, as a Rotarian in Southside, we repeat that pledge every Thursday after the meeting, and it means a lot. Because the next mayor of Tulsa needs to live by that 4-way test. It's really simple. We need to continue to try to build relationships. You know, I was in church a couple of Sundays ago at Kirk of the Hills, and the minister was talking about how Jesus didn't have an inner and an outer circle of friends. And you know, that's the way I vision my administration. You know, my slogan is, I want to be a mayor for all Tulsa. I will be there for you. And when I say you, I mean every citizen in the city of Tulsa. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I will promise you I will work hard, I will do the best job I can, and I will live by that 4-way test. So thank you for having me, and I appreciate you listening. Whoops. I would ask you to vote for me Tuesday. Thank you.
I think they know that. But thank you.
The reminder,
But
that's
thank
all.
you for the reminder. Okay, Mayor Bartlett.
When I became mayor, when I was sworn in early December 2009, I became the 4th mayor within 10 years for our city. Now we have an opportunity, by my re-election, to finally have some continuity of service, some continuity of vision, some continuity of purpose. If we look at other cities around, whether it's Oklahoma City, Austin, Texas, Portland, Oregon, Louisville, Kentucky, Indianapolis, they've all had continuity and leadership in their political arena, but also in the business community, not constant turnover. Because every time we have turnover, whole new relationship building, whole new this, whole new that. I've been your job getting as mayor. I will continue to do that. I have been a very transparent mayor. I will continue to do that. I have been very inclusive. We didn't have a reasonably decent relationship with our county and cities all around our city, in the rest of the county. We now have that capability. We have a great relationship with our city council. Thank you, Philip. That will continue on. We will continue on using the relationships that we have made in the business community, as well as in the educational community, as well as in the public safety community. The federal government is very involved in what we do in government. We've got a great relationship there, not just with elected officials, but with those that make decisions that allow us to have grants for street repair, street funding, new expressways, et cetera, et cetera. We will continue utilizing those relationships for the betterment of our city. I ask you for your vote to continue that opportunity next Tuesday, June 11th. That opportunity is very real. The continuation of those services, the continuation of that outlook is very important for our future. Thank you very much for the time to speak with me. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Mayor. And now for the last word, former Mayor Taylor.
Thank you. Well, I want to thank President Clinton for his service and John O'Connor for moderating and my fellow Rotarians for hosting this debate. I don't think the stakes could be any higher in this election. I'm proud of a proven record of getting things done together with you. When I completed my term, as I said, Tulsa's total budget was $566 million. It's projected to be $818 million next year. We did more with less. We had more officers on the street. We invested for the future. We kept the budget balanced every day by making tough, bold decisions. We must develop a focused plan to put water in the river with timetables communicated to the public so we can get their buy-in for investment. We must use 21st century data and crime analytics to prevent crime and to catch criminals and get our police staffing right. And we must continue to come together to reform public education and increase our graduation rates. More than any one accomplishment in my first term, I'm proud that we as a community came together. We turned challenges into opportunities. After a horrific ice storm, we regreened our city with 10,000 new trees. We saved jobs at American Airlines. We reduced crime through prevention and intervention. And in the midst of a terrible economic recession, we didn't slow down, we didn't settle. Instead, we brought baseball downtown. We brought a new generation of Tulsans into service on our boards, our commissions, and trust authorities. We revived Tulsa's entrepreneurial spirit and removed barriers to a college education for all children in Tulsa. We crafted an agreement with the University of Tulsa to finally give the Gilchrist Museum the partnership it needed to succeed without additional government investment. These bold actions during Tulsa's tough times are making Tulsa better today. But I believe to make this a city that our kids and our grandkids choose to call home, we need proven, bold leadership to move us forward, to return our city to the national leader it once was. I'm asking you for your vote on June 11th. Tulsa's best days are still ahead of us, but I believe it will take bold leadership to get us there. Thank you.
Thank you. Now let's show appreciation.